I would like to explain about my book, Sheva Mitzvot Hashem, a type of Shulchan Aruch that is written, compiled, in order to bring together almost all laws of Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach that I could manage to find, put together, and put in a halachic style, in a halachic book. In around 2005, Ask Noach from America then proposed to me to compile a type of Shulchan Aruch for B'nai Noach. And I took this quite seriously, and I worked on it approximately 3 years. Research, learning each sugya, each one of the Sheva Mitzvot, and all these Sheva Mitzvot having them many, many details and many laws, to learn, to write, to check, and also consult with some important Rabbanim, what their opinions were. Especially we must mention Rabbi Zalman Nechemia Goldberg, that went through almost the whole book and gave me very precious advice, fixing and so on. It's important to understand that this book is a breaking of a new ground, because I don't recognize books written in a halachic way, and not just collecting ideas or copying different psakim from different books that were before, but rather building up a new style, a new halacha book, based for bringing a psak halacha for B'nai Noach. And I hope that this was what the Rebbe had wanted, or in his, when he said in the Memim that he thought it would be very important, highly praisable, if a Shulchan Aruch type of book would be presented that would give them, the B'nai Noach, and obviously the mentors and directors and teachers for B'nai Noach, a psak, something written, conclusive. And it was clear to me that this had to be written in Hebrew, because the book had to be written in a halachic language, and then later translated and endorsed accordingly to the B'nai Noach themselves in English and other languages, which, Baruch Hashem, both stages were successful in compiling the book and putting things together, which took me around 3 years, as I said before, and that translation by Ask Noach into English, and briefing it and shortening, and what parts we can cut down and so on. I tried as much as I could to find any source in halachic books that I could bring as proof and explain the halacha fitting for B'nai Noach. It's not so easy, because there were different opinions, and there was no frame of halacha prepared for them, as we would recognize and appreciate in Jewish halachic books that already, there's a style, and there's a frame of the halacha, and you just follow the trend and you add on another little piece. Here, basically, we had to make up a style and a way of thinking. How do we bring halachos out of the text, basically the Gemarot and the Rishonim and the Mein Achronim that speak about, how do we mold this into a one text, one type of Shulchan Aruch? One of the most important things was to make rules. How do we paskin for B'nai Noach? Even till this day, I hear a lot of times people coming out, oh, it says in this book. It's just like you would say to a Rav that's well acquainted with the Shulchan Aruch, and let's say the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah, oh, it says in the Midrash Rabbah this and this. Any Rav would understand immediately that it's nonsense. You don't question from a Midrash against the Sefer Halacha. But in the B'nai Noach community, and I'm not talking about the B'nai Noach themselves, which they don't know that much, but I mean, even rabbis and preachers and teachers, they bring proofs from Zohar and Kabbalah and Midrash They have no basis of what is considered halacha and what not. And in Chabad also, many sichos of the Rebbe, that the Rebbe explained an idea, did not mean that the Rebbe posed this as this is a psak halacha. He's giving an opinion and explaining something. So you have to be very careful that we take out of Chasidus or Midrashim and Poskim and Mefarshim. How do you bring this and boil this down to a halachic text? I think that this was a great achievement, that we could define the rules of what is the halacha for Bnei Noach, how to apply this in many, many situations, and obviously copying halachas that are for Yidden in the Talmud and the Shulchan Aruch, and then applying them according to these rules to Bnei Noach. I'm sure that many people will disagree with many points that I wrote in the book, have other opinions, but I'm quite sure, Baruch Hashem, the schus of Ask Noach, and probably the Rebbe behind us all, that the background and the setup of what halachic book for Bnei Noach would be was presented. It's there. You can argue about this detail, and you can argue about this point, and obviously, Be'ezrat Hashem, there will be people that have different opinions, different interpretations, and arguments. That's natural. But I think that one of the main achievements was to put a system and a style of how do we bring out of our sources a halacha. I think it's very important here to emphasize, and it's quite clear, I understood this clear from many times the Rebbe spoke in his sichos, that the most important posek in the area of Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach is definitely the Rambam. The Rambam wrote a halacha book that encompasses the whole Torah Kula, which puts his importance as the highest level of a posek that there can be, especially in regard to laws that other Rabbanim did not deal with. We have to understand that in regard to halachos, that there are different poskim in the Rishonim, so the Rambam's stand is 1 out of 2 or 3. But in regard to Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach, he is almost always one and only. Almost. There are few halachos that we can take straight out of Shulchan Aruch and other great poskim, and they're brought down and quoted in the book as an argument, and maybe 2 opinions, or we have a hachra'ah, which opinion we should follow. But in most opinions, most issues, the Rambam is a sole posek, and so many times people will say, oh, that's the Rambam's opinion, but it's just like I would tell you today, oh, that's what's written clear in the Shulchan Aruch Ramah, but there's a midrash that thinks otherwise, which is nonsense to anybody that understands what halacha means. I think this is very important. I wrote this clearly in the introduction to the book, that the halachic weight, the Rambam outweighs in this area any other posek. I followed this rule, I think, throughout the book totally, and if not totally 100%, then 95%. Maybe there were a few exceptions that I equally weighed another opinion of rabbis. I don't remember and recall offhand, but that would be an exception. The rule is that the Rambam's opinion is always the most important opinion. I think the only, not the only, but one exception will be the law of Shituf, that here we have a common accepted psak by the Ashkenazic Rabbanim that Shituf is permitted for Bnei Noach, and it's a machloket Tanoim. So I presented it in the book as a machlokes, and a Chosid Umot HaOlam should be machmir on himself and should recognize the truth and the emes of the unity of Hashem and the falsity. It's a false concept, although Bnei Noach are not commanded about it, but it's a false concept. And I highly recommend for Chasidei Umot HaOlam of Bnei Noach to accept the unity of Hashem as Hashem is one and there's no other partner. Following the Rambam's opinion, although I did quote in the book that many authorities disagree and the halacha follows their opinion, but still halacha permits doesn't mean halacha obligates, and there's a place for Chassid Umot HaOlam to be machmir on himself. I want to add on here another point, very important in the book, that in the book I tend to give a hand to Chassid Umat Ha'olam. Anyone that has any business in halacha knows that there are many halachas that are not cut clear. There are several opinions, there are several ways of coming to a outcome of what a person should do. And there are many situations that there is not a cut clear halacha. There are suggestions. You want to be machmir, you want to be mekil, if it's hefsed meruba, and so on. Same thing applies for Bnei Noach. And I tried as much as I could in the book to give a minimum psak, that this is a must. On the other hand, a chassid, umat ha'olam, should demand and strive for a better, higher quality of his connection to Hashem. As I said, for example, in the issue of Shituf, it runs through the book in many details. Not that much, but it is. It's brought here and there, and I made an emphasis, and the book should not be looked at as only just a basic halacha book.